Hello and welcome to the Artisan Mentoring Program where we talk everything Pianocraft. It is Friday early morning and we did it. We got done with the week, worked on some pianos, learned how to work on pianos, and yeah, it was a week. It was a week. I don't think we had too many what we call peace of minds. So we have for our company Artisan something called a peace of mind guarantee, and that is basically we guarantee all of the work that we do, including tuning work, for 30 days. If you have any issues within 30 days, if your piano goes out of tune, we'll come out and take care of it. So we didn't have a lot of those this week, but I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a background as to offering that the policy, kind of where that came from. And I'll be honest, that was not from me. I was actually very much against it. So there's a story there. And then I want to talk a little bit about how we approach these calls when they come in, because we do get calls and they're either going to be one of two, calls. They're going to be ooh, I hate to bug you, Artisan, but there's this thing that happened, or this, you better get your butt over here and fix my piano because it's wrong. I feel like it's those two. And so we're going to talk about both, but I'm going to go ahead and just talk a little bit about our warranty policy and kind of where that came from. And then I'm actually going to kick it over to Stacy, because the reality is when we're taking care of warranty issues, it's kind of a two-pronged attack. One is at the very beginning of when we get the call, which is Stacy, and then when the technician goes into the home, which is usually myself or one of our other technicians. So our peace of mind guarantee, I feel like was pretty revolutionary for kind of the industry. We started it maybe 15, 20 years ago. And in the entire local market, and I feel like nationwide, people were not really guaranteeing a tuning. How do you do that? Who does that? And the reason I'm kind of really, really proud of it and amazed by it is it actually wasn't my idea. This was kind of the brainchild of my father, and because he was a sounding board for our company. And he said, I think if you offer this guarantee, it won't be used that much, but we'll have a lot of good things behind it. And I'm like, I fought it. And finally I said, okay, well, let's give it a try. And he was right. We still don't get a lot of people calling us back, but it does do several things. First off, when you're done with the tuning and you say, hey, my worry-free guarantee or peace of mind guarantee says if you have any issues, Mrs. Smith, between now and next month or so, give us a call, we'll come out and no charge to see what's going on. And that creates such a peace in your customers that they actually don't even, in a way, they don't feel like they have to be as stringent on the service you just did right then. Because unlike before with the last technicians or whatnot, they have to be, okay, is everything just right? Is it going to stay just right? No, they kind of have this peace knowing, oh, if next week I have an issue, they'll come back. And so it made people less stringent on, less intense on the work you just did. And secondarily, it just created maybe a confidence, a safety in the relationship of knowing that, okay, they have my back and I can trust them. So that was a huge deal. And we would never go back. Now that we have this guarantee, it's fantastic. That being said, we used to have an unlimited amount of time. It was just a peace of mind guarantee. After we service your piano, if you ever have an issue with it. So we'd get people calling in after like 4 years, like, hey, I think my piano's out of tune. Can you come back and tune it? And we'd have to educate the customer. So we did put a time stamp of roughly a month after a while. And that's been good. But again, it wasn't my idea. It was my father's idea. And it's worked out really well for us. Another thing to remember is when you actually go back to the customer's house, because usually people don't believe you that you will come back out for free, that you will come out and and do this. And when you do, and Robert the other day just went back to the customer's house, removed a pencil, we have found that you get a customer, absolutely a customer for life when that happens, because they've had you back in a short amount of time. The rapport is there. You've gone over and above, and so customers absolutely love that when that happens. So the calls that come in, like I said, are going to be one of two. They're going to be one of two customers really calling, and I would say majority of the customers will call you back, and they will feel like they're putting you out. They'll feel bad about what they're requesting you to do, is come out and fix a sticking key. They'll worry if it's their fault, like maybe they did something wrong. I would say, and Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say the majority of people are more in that camp. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I would say like 8 out of 10 are in that camp, like a bit more. Yeah.
And with those customers, it makes it easy because usually when you call a company back, in any company that you work for, I will say usually most people, you feel a little bit of a, okay, fine, I'll send Bill out, or I'll come right back. There's an aggression, there's a put outness. And so people in general are timid to call people back, and we find that on the phone. We hear that in their voice, and they're really surprised when we're like, Stacey, maybe you can take it over for this part, is what is your script when Mrs. Smith calls you and, hey, there's a key, there's a this, there's a that. What is your demeanor?
Usually, okay, it depends on which category. But
if it's
the nice one, I'm usually like, I feel like I'm giving him a big hug. Like, I'm so glad you called. I feel so happy that you felt comfortable calling us, because we, like, that's like kind of the feeling I'm trying to portray. Usually I'll say something like that though. Like, I'm just so happy you felt comfortable calling us back. And I'll usually ask, like, well, what's the issue? And a lot of times I will say it has nothing to do with the tuning. A lot of times it's like, there's just like or it's a repair that we came out to do that just didn't, like, maybe the squeak is back, or there's a sticky key, or there's like 3 notes that just sound really, really off. It's those kind of things.
Yeah.
And so at first I just want to make them feel like, hey, I'm really glad you called us. And they're usually like, oh. And then the second thing is just to de-escalate the problem, be like, oh, it sounds like that's just that'll take like 5 minutes to, a lot of times it is literally like a 5-minute adjustment. Most of the time, unless it's, I don't know, I hardly ever, because I'm the one that looks at all the peace of minds. I make an invoice for it, and I just never see anything really crazy on those.
Yeah. What is their reaction once you kind of de-escalated this, in that sense of they feel they didn't put you out? In fact, they've given you this gift. What are they like? What is the tone change?
They're really happy, actually. They're like, oh, good. And then they'll say something like, oh, good, because I was so nervous to call you. Like, they'll express that. And then I just basically will tell them, we'll talk about the issue, and I'll say, it's probably just this or this or this. I'm like, you know what, we'll come back out free of charge. Let me just take a look at the schedule and see when we're in your area again. And that gives me, because I say it like that, they're usually fine waiting a bit till I'm in the area, because I don't want to make like an hour trip out of the way to go back, of course, because we have to fit it in on top of our busy days. But that's how we make it work. We fit it. I try to, let's say a tech has 3 appointments. I'll try to fit it in route between one of those when we have time. And that works really, really well. But they're really happy when they're like, oh, it's good that I called then. Yeah, I reassure them quite a lot about that.
When I was answering the phone, or actually it was my wife Kathy, we both answered the phones together back in the day, and we would find that same thing where people are just really relieved. They're in that kind of that, oh yeah, they're really thrilled about that. And so Stacy does a good job not only fielding those calls, but then when the other calls come. And so the other calls will be that, the other 10 to 20%, I would say. And those are folks, and Stacy has this way, Stacy, you say this sometimes, is they're usually never mad at you. They're having something else going on in their lives. I think that's a really good thing to remember. And so when a customer's calling irate that they just had it tuned, that they didn't clean the piano, or that the sticking key is back, the squeak is back, they just paid $1,000 for this and there's something wrong. What is going through your head, Stacy, when they call you, and how do you de-escalate that and turn it around?
First, if they're upset, that's 80% of the work is you have to listen to them and let them just get it all out. Just let them and validate them. Let them know, oh my gosh, that would be so frustrating. Like mirror back what they're saying. You kind of do have to mirror back what they're saying. And it's kind of like when I have 3 boys, right? When they were little and they couldn't speak yet, and they would be frustrated about something, right? They'd be like really upset. And I was trying to figure out why they're upset. And I'd be like, oh, is it because you want me to get that for you? And when I would just give them the words, they would be like, oh, like this relief washes over them. So it's the same with everyone in life, right? If someone's upset, if you can say why they're upset, like say it back, like find out why they're upset and listen and then mirror it back. Like that would be so frustrating. Like we had someone call once that thought we had stolen their flashlight, right? We didn't steal their flashlight. We never took their flashlight. He ended up calling back to apologize. But at the time he thought one of my techs had stolen a flashlight, and he called super mad. I mean, like swearing, angry. And I was like, that would be really frustrating. So you spent all morning looking for it. How frustrating. And he's like, yeah, really frustrating. I just had to keep doing it till he calmed. And then once they're calm though, then you can just be like, well, let me do something about it. We can do something about this. So,
by the way, what happened with the flashlight person?
Oh, he was so upset. And, I said, well, first let me contact my tech and just talk to him first. And if we have your flashlight, we will for sure replace it. I mean, obviously it got lost in our care, so we'll take care of it, and he was like, yeah, you better. He was so upset, the poor guy. And then, I talked to my tech. He's like, yeah, I would never take out that. It was like this huge one. He's like, that wouldn't even fit in my tool bag. So I called him back and he didn't answer again, but I emailed him saying, we will replace it. If you just send me an equivalent link or the link of the flashlight, I'm happy to get it to you. And then later he called just so apologetic. He's like, I found it rolled under the couch. He found it and he felt so bad, but you know what? He apologized to me. He apologized to he really did feel bad once he realized it wasn't us, So
we knew that we did not steal this flashlight. It's just, but we were going to take the approach of, we didn't do this, but we're going to buy you a new flashlight. Mm-hmm. And, it's that kind of mentality. And that's what you have to have going into this is the long haul, the big game.
Right.
That's important because I think that too many technicians, I think that too many people, too many business owners just get stuck in the here and the now. And I feel like I would have been the same way if it hadn't been for my period of time that I worked very closely with Classic Pianos and the owners there. The owners really took me on, and I got to see firsthand what a company that has the long haul, the big picture looks like. And everything that they do with their policies, the way they treat people is not the here and now, but 10 years, 20 years from now. And that was such a wonderful thing to see. And that was easy to implement. I think that I am more generally that way, but that was something that we really implemented here. So you're going to get these upset customers. And there's a book that I highly recommend that you all read. And that book is called I Hear You. and I can't remember the author, but it's a simple book. It's an easy book to read, but it's actually pretty brilliant because it's actually not written by a psychiatrist, therapist, or anything. It was just a Joe Blow guy. I think he was a marketing expert, or not even a marketing guy. I think he's like just part of a marketing team. And he wrote this book, and it's all about kind of the key that everybody needs when they're communicating is we all need validation. And so like Stacy said with her sons, Sorensen, yeah, I hear you. People crave validation. And so this book really helps understand what people are saying, how what we say tends to be the wrong thing. And sometimes we have to unlearn things to really get to the core of what people are needing. So highly, highly, highly recommend that book. I hear you. But now let's go ahead and answer any questions that people have so far before we go into what it looks like in the field.
Well, I have one, and maybe you're going to cover this. How do you coach your techs? Because when we goof up, and it happens, we tend to be defensive, but people are very forgiving as well if we own it. So when a tech goes back, how do you coach them on that interaction with the customer?
It's a good question. That's a great question. And first off, it has to be in the culture. So all the technicians know that we're not all about the bottom dollar, and their wage is not tied to this mistake. So that's a big one, is that they're there, and they're not losing out. They're not losing money by being there. So there's not I wish I wasn't here because I could be making more money. So that's out of the equation. They also know that because we have this policy that we want to make the customers happy. That's their job. Their job is entirely creating this experience. So that kind of has to come from the top down when we're talking about things. Stacy sets a great tone for working with customers and the culture. Stacy also usually writes good notes. Hey, this is what happened. This is where they're feeling. And so we as technicians know when we're going in there to kind of be able to keep a level head. Now, that being said, I've had to let go of technicians in the past that really created it. When push comes to shove, there was more of a hostile experience that the customer received from that technician. And so we've had to, once that came out, we had to remove those technicians. So we're really hardcore from the top down that the experience is everything. We want to take care of the customers. We make an environment where the technicians are not suffering for having to do these things, these peace of minds, these warranties. Financially, they're not getting paid less because they're doing it. And I think it's just the way that we talk about our customers and how much we want to help them and how we want them to have a good experience. But to be honest, I think that things have been de-escalated. By the time they arrive at the customer's house, it's been de-escalated to the point where it's rarely ever super intense. Stacy,
that's absolutely right. I would never send a tech into like a situation like that where the customer was still upset for one thing. And I've never felt from any of our techs that they feel like worried about going to peace of mind or judged, or I just don't feel that at all. They just know that they know as well as I know that most of this stuff with the peace of mind is not really the tuning. Yeah. It's just not. Or I've had, it's like, okay, not to be perfect. Like we're the thing is the environment is so we're just learning. There's not one way to do something perfect. And I've had one tech have to go out like 2 other times for this pedal squeak that kept coming back, but he wasn't like worried about it. He just was like, I'm going to figure it out. If this didn't work, we'll try this. You just keep trying. Right. And, as long as the customer sees that too, like you're trying to figure it out too. You don't have all the answers all the time. But I feel like when they go, I don't even send the same text sometimes. If I feel any kind of, this rarely happens, but if they're focusing on my tech at all, I just send another tech. I don't want to ever put them in that situation where they would be like in a hostile kind of environment. But yeah, most of them are, I don't know. I just feel like the techs are pretty good. they know that they're just going to take care of this little thing, and they know what it is, and they just go do it. It's really great, actually. It's a really good system, I think.
Do you have any gray areas, or have you encountered many where it's, 6 weeks and then that you go back and maybe you have to repin a flange that was not a problem the first time? And do you go up 31 days, got to charge you all over again? Do you have any of those? How do you encounter those if you do?
That's a good question. I mean, we don't get that too often where if they're calling like 4 months later, I just basically, I'm usually like, yeah, we can come right back out. And I let them know what we're going to charge to do it. And if they like put up a fight, or if they're like, hey, but I mean, sometimes it depends on the situation. It's very per case, but usually we've done that before. We've had techs go back out like 3 or 4 months later, and I just charged just a service call just to go back out, because they usually know, like, it's been almost half a year. Like, I don't know. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think that for me, if there's, I'll do what Stacey does and kind of do the assumed, okay, well, yeah, we'll just charge you a service fee. If there's any kind of hesitation, if there's any kind of, well, I think you should have done this, or this is on you guys, okay, we'll go out there. We want you to be happy.
Yeah.
That's usually it. And we'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't come from a background like that. Had a variety of different techs I've worked with, but I've had some that were they would just fight it. And I would see the repercussions with the customer with that. And it was never worth it. Honestly, it was just never worth it to see someone get angry, and like the fight that would ensue, and the Google review and the PR. It's just like, cause they would I've experienced that before, having to hold whatever, I was told to do. And that's not super fun. So it's nice. I like this way a lot. So.
Well, they have that maximum, the customer is always right, which isn't always true, but yet you have to balance that with, to David's point, your long-term business and trying to keep that customer happy.
Yeah, the one of the things that Andy, when he came in to be COO, is he really brought a level of thinking about the lifetime value of a customer and what that actually is, because we as technicians kind of get stuck on the, okay, well, it was a $200 tuning, and now I'm having to go back there, and that I could have done this, I could have done that. Well, our goal is to make that $200 tuning a $2,000 customer in the lifetime value. And so if you think about it in that sense, then it's like, okay, even if you just think about it financially, it makes sense as an investment to do this. Whether putting all the ethics and goodwill aside, even financially, it does make more sense to kind of nurture that relationship, because your lifetime value of a customer could be 10x what that service call is.
Yeah. And if you schedule it when you're already in the area, the customer usually is willing to wait, because you're doing it for free. You're coming back for free. And then you can strategically do it. So you're really not getting like a huge loss or anything from just going back out. So that helps a lot.
And if you do go back out, one of the things you can do is evaluate the piano again. Say, hey, remember I did make a note that we should do a regulation at some point in the future. I'm going to put that note in your file and kind of put a little bit more specifics, because I really do think we need to do that in the future. Oh, yeah. That, because now they're really that much more happy with you that you came back and fixed something, and you're able to reiterate the work that you recommended. So it's a good situation. So let's talk about going to the customer's house. So Stacey or your admin staff or you have already talked to the customer saying, hey, Robert, I'm going to come back out. Michael, I'm coming back out. Stacey says, hey, we're going to send somebody out. No problem. Okay. You're going to call the customer 10 to 30 minutes before you get there, whatever that is for you. And it's like, hey, Mrs. Smith. Oh, by the way, your customer's expecting the call, but they're still apprehensive, by the way. okay, it's the day of, you're supposed to return. I guarantee you they're still nervous about you coming. And if you're really happy, or if you're really okay being there and doing it. So the next thing you're going to do is on that call, don't leave a text, call them. Hey, Mrs. Smith, just calling to let you know that I'm on my way. I'm going to take care of your piano. I should be there in about 15 minutes. That's the beat. That's the tempo. That's the rhythm. And so it's not, hey, it's David. I should be there in a half an hour. I'll fix your sticking key. No. Hey, this is David. I'm going to be there in about half an hour to go ahead and fix that sticking key. We'll get your piano right as rain. It will be good to go. It's something along that where you're just disarming the situation, just relaxing everything. And so, and even when it's, and I'll have this happen where they'll respond, okay, well, you know, that's what I'm paying you for. Yep, totally. That's exactly it. And I'm excited. You need to be excited. That's the thing. You need to be excited. Like, this is making your day that you get to go and go back to this customers again. And you need to manifest that. You need to get in that rhythm, that vibration. I'm excited to go back. And once you do that, everything works out. So knocking at the door, again, I'm just really thrilled, kind of keeping that in my mind, you know, and one of the ways that I do this, I'm just kind of processing it as I'm doing it, because I'm like, how do I do this? Because I do it. I'm very excited. I think about what I get to do for a living. I get to work with my hands. I get to work within this amazing musical instrument. I get to do this while other people are going off and doing horrible jobs that they hate. So I look at, and so I kind of get into a grateful state, maybe, is what it is. And so I'm like, I get to go work out with my hands. And as even if this is the hardest part of my job, this is not that bad. And so I get into that mode. So by the time I'm knocking at the door and they open it, I'm like, hey, I'm here to fix the key. Hey, I'm back. I'm here to fix what's going on. It's that energy. And you'll be met at the door 8, 9 out of 10 with the owner, and they'll just be, oh, they'll kind of have that. They'll like, okay, okay, yeah, I'm so sorry. That's usually what happens. I'm so sorry to call you back. And my son just noticed this key is sticking to it. Hey, no problem. That's why I'm here. I'm excited. Let's figure out what's going on. It's that we're in this together. The piano is the thing. We're in it together. You, me, customer. We're in this together to fix this and figure this out. So most of the time, that's the energy. That's the rhythm. Other times, that 1 to 2 out of 10, where you'll have the customer is visibly upset. They're visibly put off. You want to tamper that energy back. Say, so knocking at the door. Hey, Jim, I'm here to fix that sticking key. What's going on? And it's kind of this inquisitive. What's going on? What are we looking at? And well, you know, last time you were here, you said you fixed that sticking key, and it came right back. So I guess you didn't fix it, huh? I'm like, I guess not. Where is it that same key? And you just start asking questions. Is it that same key? Is it as hard as when you hit it the same way? Okay, Jim, can you show me really quick? Because it's like kind of a needle in a haystack sometimes. Okay, yep. Am I doing it right there? Okay. All right. Well, let's get it taken care of. And this is exactly why we have this guarantee, because we want you to be happy. We want you to feel like you can call us back. I'm so grateful you did, because we want your piano to be amazing. And then usually by this time, they're like, okay, this person's genuine. They really do want to help me out. There's not going to be a hidden charge. They're genuine. And so by the time you're there, you fix it, or you say, you know what, Jim, I need to come and make another trip because there's parts that need to be replaced. You at that time can decide whether the situation calls for or not, if you're going to charge to come back. But again, you're still keeping the energy of, I'm thrilled to be here, but you'll dial it back to match the tone of how upset or positive the customer is. And so work with that, kind of be in that zone. Does anybody have any questions about that? Stacey, what do you think about that?
That was great. And like you pointed on earlier, just to reiterate, when a customer is upset, like really kind of overly upset, it never has anything to do with you. Always remember that. It has like think about, like, if you can pull your empathy out of it and just go, I wonder what happened in this person's life to be making them treat me this way. Because when you start thinking of that, you start going, okay, like they've had a rough go, because people aren't mean, like just for no reason, that something happened and they're struggling and who knows. And it's like that analogy where the dad has a bad day at work and he comes home and yells at the wife, and the wife yells at the kid, and then the kid like kicks the cat or something, you know, like it like can ricochet. So your job is to like put an end to that. So, and sometimes just never take it personal though. Like, if you take it personal, like their tone with you or anything, then like that's not the way to go. Always know it has nothing to do with you. You're just there to help. You're there to help. You're there to show them that they're amazing people in the world and that you care and that you're there for the long term with them. So
that is so true. I mean, people word vomit on you. Well, the vomit, you didn't cause it. And sometimes you just have to let them let it out and let it sit there a little while.
Yeah, it's really a gift when you can be kind of present with someone in a space like that. It's kind of a great work to do when you're able to stay calm, because you know that, and you're able to just stay calm with them. And it helps. It really is kind of like you said, Robert, sometimes they just need to get it out and they feel so much better after. And you just happen to be the person to hold that space. So.
Can I ask another question? This may be a little bit of a different tone. Do you ever do a mandatory follow-up? Say maybe they did a pitch raise on a very difficult piano, or you did a major regulation and you just want to say, hey, how's it going? 3 weeks later, just wanted to check. I did a pitch raise on that guy that cut the soundboard out of the piano at his church. So I'm probably going to text him back and say, how's it sounding? Are there any notes I need to touch up? Because I wasn't going to charge him to come back and do a second pass. I said, let's just knock on wood and hope that it holds. But, there's probably going to be some notes that do go out. And so do you do anything like that as sort of a follow-up check for certain services?
We used to when we were smaller, I would say, because we'll have maybe 20 or 30 appointments in a given day happening sometimes. So it's just, to do that every day is just so much. So, but early on, absolutely we did that, just to kind of follow up, make sure the experience was good, make sure that the work held up. But yeah, so we used to do that. Stacy, what about you for the people that you've worked on in the past? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I love what we're doing now. Where all the texts on the invoices are recommending services. And there's a lot of times that I'll see something, because I look at every single appointment after, right? And it'll say like, recommended follow-up tuning in 4 weeks. So I literally can follow up with them in 4 weeks. So I put it on my call list, I kind of schedule myself to call them. And that's kind of my follow-up, honestly. Like, hey, your text said it might need another tuning. Do you want to schedule that? And then I could get another, that, I don't know. So I do like that. I haven't, Usually they preface it like you did, Robert, where you're like, hey, these are issues that could come up. Like, you let them know ahead of time so it's not scary for them when they do. Like, because, and then I usually just let them reach out to us. But we've already set that expectation that these are issues that might come up. Like, when we would do rebuilds, the strings were new. It's definitely going to need a tuning. Like a month. So, but if it starts sounding out of tune, like even quicker than that, call me. We'll get out there sooner. But I don't know, maybe like that. Maybe let them know ahead of time if you foresee some issues, so they're not surprised by it, I guess. And
we kind of let them. If you have to go back, do you build that into the schedule? like a new string, you're going to have to go back and touch it up, and they've already paid for it. Is that part of the service where you're already scheduling to go back next week and touch it up?
We actually stopped including a touch up on that. We just mute off the string and just say, if you want to schedule, if it's bugging you, or if you can't wait 6 months, we can just charge you a service call fee. And so we changed that because just with the scale of what we're doing, it got too hectic, and we couldn't charge enough to make it worth it. Just to, it was just eating too much. So again, some of the questions that you have is, I would say that yes, when we were more of kind of when I was just doing more of this, doing more of the work. But then as we evolved, and it's not great. I mean, it's just sometimes what happens when you get bigger, there's certain things that kind of fall away. And as much as you want to hold on to everything, we have to figure out what's the meat and potatoes. And so we've had to adapt and change certain pricing structures because of that. And so now we just mute off the string and instead of touching it up, because what we found, and again, imagine you have 5 technicians replacing a string throughout the week and then having to go back out. And then they're like, hey, it didn't hold because strings stretch. And then they want you out again for the peace of mind. And then this. So it can get hairy.
Yeah, and I mean, we have a lot of we did school pianos, right, recently. So there's a lot of strings involved in that. So yeah, they just mute it off, and it does work. This is the first place I've done that does that, by the way. That just tried muting it off until the next service call. So yeah, I've had some come back the following year and just tune it and remove the mute, and good. Yeah, it seems to be working just from my year of watching it. So
another thing
that makes sense.
Yeah. Another thing to remember is the better you do at the initial service call of explaining your guarantee or your warranty, the easier or the better the interaction will be if they call you back. So if you've done a good job saying, hey, Tim, Rick, whatever, I've tuned your piano. If you notice anything, like any issues, please give us a call and we'll come out and see what's going on. So the more you can do that, if Rick or Tim call you, they're not going to be angsty about it. They're not going to be put off. They're not going to be worried about it. They're just going to be like, okay, he said, and I believe him. And so the better you can do that about just genuinely saying, I want to know if something comes up, please promise me you'll call and so that we can come and take care of it. Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds good. So the better you do that at the initial, the easier it will be for you all long term.
One thing I have noticed that I have not seen before, this is kind of new, so I'm kind of just collecting data and observing right now, but when we've been upgrading services with customers, right, so we'll do extra and we charge extra, those are the ones that have been calling about peace of minds, because we've already raised the expectation. They decide to pay more for more, right, because it needed to be done. But I noticed most of the peace of minds, a little bit of a bump in those up has been because of that experience. So that's something I'm just noticing right now. I'm not sure what we'll do exactly. We've just been going back out, but I have noticed that lately, like their expectations a little higher because they, so yeah, it's a good thing to make sure you do really good work while you're there. Like check over everything before you leave. So
yeah, that's the right expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you, Stacy, about are you guys seeing surprise Google reviews very often that are negative? Because I would think that if you've done a good enough job that they're calling you before they're putting in a bad Google review.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
have you had surprise ones that come up and you're having to then call them back and that process?
We've had like 3 in a year, right, David, where we would see this like review. And the first thing I do is call them. That's the first thing we do. And actually we can always get them to change it, honestly. Haven't we gotten 3
without asking?
Yeah, without even asking. So if you see that, you call them right away and be like, I just saw this review. Oh my goodness. I wish you would have called me. I would have been happy to, like one of them, the person had just gotten hearing aids. Do you remember that last December?
Yeah.
And he's like, my piano sounds terrible after the tuning. He didn't understand the audio with the new hearing aids. It's going to make your piano. There was all this whole thing, but he left a terrible review that we did a terrible tuning. And I called him and I was like, I sent a different tech out to just like, hey, could you just like see what's going on with this piano? He was really upset, but he did let us come back when I called him. And then my tech went out and he's like, the tuning's great, but he was smart enough. Oh, it was Adam. He was so smart to notice the hearing aids. And then he like educated the customer and the customer was like, oh, I didn't understand that it was the hearing aids. And he ended up changing the review. Anyway, things like that. But yeah, I would you call them right away, but it's rare. Usually they'll try calling first. They won't just like, nah. So yeah.
And I guess kind of on a follow on that is, I've definitely trying to respond to all the Google reviews within Google so that you have those replies. I assume that you guys are doing that as well.
Yeah.
We are. There's an issue we're having with Google right now in accessing certain things, but yes, we are doing.
Yes, when I have access and we're not locked out, I answer everything at least within a week. Because it's kind of fun to respond to them too. And my favorite thing to do is just let the techs know the reviews they're getting. They don't always watch it. I have one tech that'll watch it. He's so funny. He'll share the reviews before I see him. I'm like, nice, you beat me. But yeah, I love responding to those actually. It's really fun.
Yeah, I think that just know that in your budget, doing free work, warranty work like that is just kind of a line item. It's part of marketing. It's part of advertising because I guarantee you they will tell that, they might tell somebody about you if they've had that initial good experience, but they will tell people about you if they have you come back and you create a safe, pleasant environment and fix the issue. They will tell people. And that's been fun to see.
And another thing we've done like in the last year, which I hadn't seen before, but I've really liked it, is if we went back for a peace of mind and it wasn't because of the tuning, I make up an invoice, like a $195 service call, and then I discount it as a peace of mind appointment and just explain what happened. It wasn't because of the tuning, but we were just, they have that. They get to see the value of what they just got. And I think that's really cool, actually. We do it in a nice way.
I didn't even know we did that. That's really cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So I always want to know. Plus, I want to know just part of the history in Gazelle, like why did we go back out? What happened? So that's been really good.
Yeah. Warranty stuff. It's going to happen. Don't let it get you down. Just create an energy of, and remember, you get to work on pianos. As hard as your day is, at the end of the day, you get to work on pianos. That's really an amazing thing. And I get to see a lot of what people do for a living because I'm in their homes and I get to ask and stuff like that. And it's amazing the interest, especially when the men are there at home. The men, how'd you get into this? What they look like? Did you get paid well? And it's like this. How do you get it? So, not that they're like envious, but it's just like it's such a cool craft to be a part of. And at the end of the day, you're going to get some customers that are a little finicky, a little bit not as kind as they could be, but it sure beats so many things out there. And at the end of the day, get to work on pianos, man. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. You get to kind of set your own hours and kind of like there's some flexibility. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool life. You get to work with your hands. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Well, that's all I got for the warranty. unless there's any questions.
I think we covered everything, really. I mean,
That's all I had today.
yeah. Yeah, I think we kind of covered it. Yeah.
Well, have a great weekend. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and email us. Be sure to like and subscribe. Is that what they say? Hit the like, smash the
Smash that like button.
and have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Same old stuff.
Bye.
Thanks, Stacey.
See ya.